Right. So speaking of alternative platforms, I started writing on Substack. So I don't know, dude. Like, I started posting articles on my website, right? And we already have the newsletter, so I'm going to try and merge that with the Substack. But basically, you can go and read stuff on Substack. That's it. I'm just typing articles there. I'm writing articles there and typing out stuff that we're doing here. So definitely go check it out. And the first article that I already published, it's let me show it to you right here. So this is it, all right? It's called Bipartisan Murder. And I go into the history of the conflict in Syria, the war on Syria a little bit, right? Showing how the U.S. planned this out, and they're working with Al-Qaeda, and they just straight up brag about it. Like, it's not even a secret, right? They don't care. They just don't give a crap. And then, of course, going into, Biden bombing Syria. And, of course, before that, just here I talk about the sanctions and oil. And then, of course, here, I talk about what Biden did bombing Syria and, the legal rationale behind it, or illegal rationale, going into the authorization for the use of military force, the war powers resolution, all this stuff. And yes, so definitely go check it out. The URL is richardmedhurst.substack.com. Substack, that's SUBSTACK. Okay. And you can subscribe. And I think there's a paid model. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure this thing out, man. I really, like, for me, it's more about trying to also do a written format. So that's it. And again, it's an alternative platform. So that's really good. And yeah, you can also subscribe there, I think. But if you're supporting the show on Patreon, whatever, man, it's all appreciated. Even if you share the links, I don't care. I'm appreciated nonetheless. I'm really grateful. So it's richardmedhurst.substack.com. That's the URL. There you go. Just wanted to give you a heads up about that. All right, let's put that away for now, and we'll get into the war machine, shall we? Right. Okay. So Joe Biden, all right, Uncle Joe and his Rainbow Coalition death cult. He's requested the largest military budget in history, right? So this is a request for discretionary spending. And he's requested $753 billion. Yes. Let me say that again. $753 billion. Okay, let me show that to you over here. This is his request. So he's saying $769 billion in non-defense discretionary funding for the fiscal year 2022, which is a 16% increase over the year before. And $753 billion for national defense programs, which is a 1.7% increase. You know what's hilarious? Like, you have people that are outraged by this, and of course, in the wrong way. So you have Mitch McConnell, you have Republicans, you have people in the media writing shit like this, for example, right? That the White House budget plan is bad news for national defense goals. This is from The Hill, right? And why are they mad? They're mad because Uncle Joe is not feeding them enough money for the war machine. It's not enough, apparently. Like, they're saying it's just a 1.7% increase. It's just $10 billion. That's not enough. We need more because this barely adjusts for inflation. We need more. We have to deter China. Yes, we have to meet the growing nuclear threat of China. Motherfucker, how long have we been hearing about that? Do you remember what... It's been decades. Like, do you remember when Battlefield 4 came out? Right? They had this whole single player campaign. Battlefield is a multiplayer game, man. Don't make single player crap. You suck at it. But the whole thing, it's like brainwashing you, right? Oh God, China rising. They want to take over the South China Sea quick. There's a growing nuclear threat. We have to deal with that. Dude, they use the movie industry, the game industry to fucking brainwash people with this. And if you look inside of the request that Biden filed, look, he just says it out there. Look, we have to deter China. This discretionary request prioritizes the need to counter the threat from China as the department's top challenge. That's their top challenge, dude. All right? Say the department would also seek to deter destabilizing behavior by Russia. leveraging the Pacific Deterrence Initiative and working together with allies and partners in the Indo-Pacific region and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO. Department of Defense would ensure that the United States builds the concept, capabilities, and posture necessary to meet these challenges. And I mean, this is absolutely insane, because what they're trying to do, they're trying to escalate this Cold War, this new Cold War with China, right? They're going mad that China is doing the Belt and Road Initiative, right? And of course, they have to make up threats, right? They always need a boogeyman. So it's not enough that you have the war on terror still 2 decades on. That's not enough. No. Now it's China as well, right? So I want to show you something interesting, though. I want to show you something interesting. This is from Fareed Zakaria, okay? And man, this is a good segment. Like, this is a good segment. It's a genuinely good one. And again, you know, there's a saying that even a broken clock is right twice a day. And I'm kind of surprised that they let this air on CNN. But I'm just going to play it to you. We're going to watch the whole thing. It's about 5 minutes, but please pay attention because it's genuinely good. I'm not saying that like as a joke. It's genuinely good. Take a look.
During his visit to Asia this week, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin outlined his key concerns.
While we were focused on issues in the Middle East, China has modernized its military. And so our goal is to make sure that we maintain
all to be justified by the great Chinese threat. What Austin calls America's edge over China is more like a chasm. The United States has nearly 20 times the number of nuclear warheads as China. It has twice the tonnage of warships at sea, including 11 nuclear-powered aircraft carriers, compared with China's 2 carriers, which are much less advanced. Washington has over 2,000 modern fighter jets, compared to Beijing's roughly 600, according to national security analyst Sebastian Roblin. And the U.S. deploys this power using a vast network of some 800 overseas bases. China has 3. China spends about $250 billion on its military, which is a third as much as the United States. Michael O'Hanlon of the Brookings Institution notes that if China were in NATO, we would berate it for inadequate burden sharing, since its military outlays fall well below NATO's 2% minimum. At the height of its imperial might in the late 19th century, when it ruled over a quarter of the world's population, Great Britain adopted a 2-power standard. Its navy had to be larger than the next 2 put together. U.S. military spending remains larger than the next 10 countries put together, 6 of which are Washington's close allies. America's intelligence budget alone, around $85 billion, is much larger than Russia's total defense spending. And yet the U.S. never imagines that this kind of spending could ever be seen by other countries as worrying or threatening. In requesting even more money for his region, the head of the Indo-Pacific Command, Admiral Davidson, remarked on China's increases in defense spending.
I cannot for the life of me understand some of the capabilities that they're putting in the field unless it is an aggressive posture.
But the fact that Washington is spending more on the military than it did at the height of the Vietnam War, even accounting for inflation, should threaten no one. In any case, the size of military spending is a misleading indicator of strength. Far more important are the objective sort and the political military strategy used to achieve those objectives. The U.S. has probably outspent the Taliban by, 10,000 to 1 in Afghanistan. And yet Washington has been unable to achieve its objective there, ensuring that the Kabul government rules the country uncontested. If the United States defines its goals carefully and assembles an intelligent and consistent political and military strategy to achieve them, it can succeed. Without that, millions of troops and trillions of dollars will not guarantee victory. Bigness is not a substitute for brains. Consider 2 contrasting exercises of power. America's F-35 fighter jet program, bedeviled by cost overruns and technical problems, will ultimately cost taxpayers $1.7 trillion, according to a document obtained by Bloomberg. China will likely spend a comparable amount of money on its Belt and Road Initiative, an ambitious set of loans, aid, and financing for infrastructure projects across the world aimed at creating greater interdependence with dozens of countries that are important to Beijing. Which do you think is money better spent? The Pentagon operates in a realm apart from any other government agency. It spends money on a scale and wastes money on a scale that is almost unimaginable. Every government agency is required to audit its accounts. But for decades, the Pentagon simply flouted this law. In 2018, it finally obeyed, paying $400 million for 1,200 auditors to examine its books. Yet it still could not get a clean bill of health. As Matt Taibbi notes in a brilliant expose of Pentagon accounting, the auditors were unable to pass the Pentagon or flunk it. They could only offer no opinion, explaining the military's empire of hundreds of acronymic accounting silos was too illogical to penetrate. The Defense Department has failed to pass 2 more audits. Having spent nearly 2 decades fighting wars in the Middle East without much success, the Pentagon will now revert to its favorite kind of conflict, a Cold War with a nuclear power. It can raise endless amounts of money to outpace China, even if nuclear deterrence makes it unlikely there will be an actual fighting war in Asia. Of course, there might be budget wars in Washington, but those are the battles the Pentagon knows how to win. Go to cnn.com/Fareed for a link to my Washington Post column this week.
Do you know how much I hate this guy? When I saw that Biden had requested this budget, I started preparing a segment. There's not a fucking point that I had ready that he didn't say in this video. Okay, there are a few things I want to add, but like, it's ridiculous. I was like, motherfucker. It's brilliant. He nailed it. I mean, you know, if you're gonna say anything about this segment, you could just say that the word imperialism was missing, right? He's basically laying it out. He's basically laying it out. The only way that I would go further, because all of his points were absolutely true and solid, is that it's a racket. It really is a racket. You know, the United States, it's not an accident that they spend 10 times what Russia spends, right? Let me show this to you over here, okay? If you look at military expenditure, I mean, look at that compared to Russia. Now, keep in mind, this is from 2018, right? But the ratio, it's still the same proportion, right? So this is in 2018. Russia's spending $61 billion US on their military. The United States is spending $648 billion, 10 times as much. And, you know, compared to China, more than double. So, I mean, if Russia and China are capable, they're such threats with spending less than half or 10 times less, right? Depending on if you want to talk about China or Russia. I mean, what does that say about you? They have official bases, and then they have lily pads, and then there are other bases that are, you know, dark, that are unconfirmed. And, you know, lily pad is like a jumping point, basically. It's not a full on thing. But I mean, just look at it everywhere, right? Everywhere. And they don't need this. I mean, this is obscene. It's just imperialism. It's just so they can kind of control, right? Strategic posture, they call it. And if you go and read the budget request from Biden, he talks about, you know, maintaining posture. Posture just means being a fucking bully. That's what it means, right? It's like when they go and they send a bunch of a bunch of B-52s to fly over Iran as a show of force. I mean, that's a fucking nuclear bomber. What are you doing? Like, could you imagine? Not imagine. Do you remember the Cuban Missile Crisis when Russia had nukes off the coast of Florida and Cuba? How they fucking lost it? Like, that's a thing. You know, we remember that now, right? You learned that in history class. The Cuban Missile Crisis, 1962. Like, it's a date. It's a significant date. Because the United States was under threat of nukes. But it's so casual for the United States to just fly nuclear bombers around Iran, right? Or to have 15,000 military bases just surrounding Iran. Like, you know, this is a meme. There's a caption like, how dare Iran put their country around all these U.S. military bases, right? And by the way, you can add another U.S. base inside Syria now. These bastards, well, several, but I'm talking about an air base, the one in El Tanef, which is over here, you know, near Damascus. So, I mean, this is obscene, right? This is obscene. And this amount of money that's spent, I mean, as Fareed was saying, like, it's more than during the height of the Vietnam War. But let me also show you in history. I mean, look at World War II, right? The United States enters World War II after Pearl Harbor, right? And look at that. I mean, under Barack Obama, right, this so-called progressive, he's reaching the same levels as during World War II, and now it's going right back up again. Okay, take a look over here. I had this pulled up. Give me a second. Yeah, look. This is in billions of dollars, right? I mean, look at that. In 2011, 717 billion. And then it goes back down. And then, of course, Trump starts bringing it back up to 2016 when he gets into office. And then now Biden just continues. This is once again where you're seeing Joe Biden taking what Trump did and building on it, right? With everything. At the border, with the foreign policy, with Israel, with the military budget. He's like, screw it. Yeah, let's just keep going. Like, people accepted it under Trump. We'll just get away with it now ourselves, right? And we'll have a black man leading the Pentagon, or, you know, a woman leading the Treasury, and by extension, the Office of Foreign Assets Control, which is the authority that imposes sanctions to starve millions of people, right? It's a woman leading it now. What, you don't like sanctions? Are you sexist? What the fuck? You know, it's insane. Like, and he mentioned the F-35, right? I mean, the F-35, they've sold a bunch of them to Britain, and I think Britain bought the wrong ones. You have the ABC variants. Only one of them works for aircraft carriers. And, you know, I mean, he's definitely right about that. But someone's making money, right? Someone's making money off of that. Just to give you an example, like my point is that there's no one losing here. The only person losing is the taxpayer, the American citizens. That's who's losing the money. They don't care if the F-35 is a failure, because they're going to keep on wasting money on it, right? I mean, just to give you an example, the B-52, you know, in World War II, they had the B-17, right? The Flying Fortress. And then the B-52 comes along. I mean, we're talking about technology from the 50s and 60s. They're still using that plane. They're still using them to this day, right? From an engineering point of view, it's a good machine, right? The F-35 is being built right now, and, you know, all of a sudden, we don't know how to do this, and guess what? Looks like we're going to need a couple more billion to keep going with it. It's a racket. They're scamming you. It's literally a scam, you know. It's unbelievable. And, you know, I want to show you this. Do you remember how they tried auditing the Pentagon, which Fareed mentioned earlier? And they're missing trillions. They're missing trillions of dollars. Like, and no one bats an eye. It's like, yeah, whatever. It's just a black hole that sucks up trillions of dollars. Whatever, dude. You know? No, you can't have healthcare. I'm sorry. Right? Again, just showing you the priorities of the Biden administration. Like, you know, we can't do the $15 minimum wage. No. Sorry, the Senate parliamentarian said no. We can't give you the $2,000 checks. Those are $1,400 because Trump already gave you $600. But, you know, I think I'll go bomb Syria. And, you know, I think I'll ask for the biggest military budget in history. Yeah, whatever. What the fuck? What? Not even George Bush spent this much? Like, just put that into perspective. Like, what are you doing? Why don't they apply that same logic with the checks to what they're doing now? Like, you know, they're saying Trump gave you $600. So to make that $2,000, you should only get $1,400 as a stimulus check. Okay, well, Trump, you know, Trump was also spending over $700 billion for the defense budget. You already took some from Trump, so you don't need another 750. Just just take the 1.6% increase. That's all you need. You already got it for Trump. God damn it, they're so vile. They really are. And I mean, just look at this, right? Look at all these bases that they have over here. This is obscene. This is obscene. So these big circles, right? That means there are over 100 bases. Look at Japan, and again, because even after World War II, the U.S. basically just colonized Germany and Japan, right? Look how many bases they have, right? It's obscene. It's truly obscene. And of course, the ones in gray, these are unconfirmed, right? There are probably more of them. And another thing that I would point you to, when we're talking about this, we're talking about the conventional armed forces. You still have to keep in mind that you have groups like Blackwater, which they rebranded to Academy, I think now. You have mercenary groups, you have private contractors, right? And that's like a second shadow army, effectively. Again, it's obscene. And another aspect of that is that you're effectively outsourcing jobs that can be done by the military to private contractors, right? And this is well known. You would have someone in the army training a private contractor to do their job, which they could do for 10 times less money. But because people in Washington have friends in the private industry, well, that's actually putting it mildly, because Washington is run by the private sector, by the military-industrial complex. Instead of paying, some private to do this job, or a corporal, or whatever it is, or a translator, they'll go and get someone from the private sector to do it for the military, right? Even the intelligence agencies, they subcontract work. Like they're running a racket. It's unbelievable. Again, just look at this. Just look at this. This is from 2019. Like, obviously, the United States needs to go and ask China and ask Russia what they're doing, that they're so effective when they spend far less money. They really should. And of course, I don't see any pushback on this at all. I mean, where are the progressives, right? Where is the squad? Again, I want to explain something to you. Like, I know I can't reason with Ted Cruz. I know that he is a lost cause. Yes, I know that I cannot reason with Mitch McConnell. He's also a lost cause. Many of these people, Joe Biden, I can't reason with Joe Biden. He's a lost cause. The people I can reason with, where I can find some common ground, at least I thought, are people like the squad, right? These are women of color. They have backgrounds that are similar to mine. Rashida is Palestinian. She's also Arab, right? Ilhan Omar, for example, she came to the United States as a refugee. She's Muslim. We have things in common, right? She comes from an Arab-speaking country. So I think that, okay, I can reason with them, right? But they don't say anything about this. The only one who's actually said anything is Rashida, right? She's made a tweet over here about this military budget saying that $750 billion for aiding death and destruction is immoral and sick. She's absolutely right. Instead, we should spend the money to help. Right? $20 billion to end homelessness, $50 billion for free 4-year public education, $50 billion for Child Care is Essential Act. Yes. $31 billion to fully fund the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. Yes. 100%. Right? But is that enough? I mean, look, man, Trump was on Twitter, so maybe he might have seen that, but you have Biden now. Biden is not on Twitter, I can guarantee you. Actually, neither is Trump anymore. My point is, the president is not on Twitter, so he's not going to see that. Second of all, you're a congresswoman, right? I'm not a congressperson. You're a congresswoman. You have more leverage than me, right? You have more reach than me. So, and of course, your constituents of whom you represent. Why don't you ask for a meeting with Joe Biden? Not his White House chief of staff, not Ron Klain, with Biden. Meet directly with him. Why don't you, put pressure on him? Why don't you do a press conference? You can call a press conference. Remember when the squad, they called a press conference because of Pelosi, right? Or because of Trump, when Trump was saying, oh, you should go back home. He was doing this racist shit at his rallies. They called a press conference, right? Why don't they do that now? Why don't you show pictures of the Mahmoudiyah massacre? Why don't you show pictures of the people killed in drone strikes in Pakistan? You can put pressure on Biden publicly. You have that leverage. This tweet, yeah, okay, she's saying correct things, but it's not enough, right? And of course, the other ones, they don't see nothing. I like AOC, not a word, right? Just like not a word on when he bombed Syria, like nothing. Like, how can you be against gun violence and police violence, but you don't say anything about the military? They're wearing your flag. You passed their budget, right? You know, again, while it's true that they may not be voting for it, for the NDAA, they're still part of the government. They are part of this institution, the U.S. Congress. They're still part of that. So, if I were in their shoes and my party, the head of my party is saying, oh no, we're instead of feeding the homeless and clothing the homeless and housing the homeless, instead of giving people health care, instead of doing everything that Rashida just listed here, no, we're going to go spend $750 billion on death and destruction, I would resign. I'd be like, I'm not staying in this fucking death cult party. This is a death cult. No one in their right mind does this. Goodbye. But they're never going to do that, of course, right? Because that would take political courage. And they're thinking long term. They want their careers, unfortunately, right? So, again, there are people say like, oh, you can't expect them to do everything. I don't, but they can at least do something, right? They can really take a proper stance and mount a pressure campaign against Biden. That they can do. You can't come here and tell me that the most popular politicians in the United States can't do that. That's bullshit. Of course they can. They have a duty to do that, and they won't do it. That's the bare minimum that they can do, the bare minimum, and they're not doing it. I don't understand, because Rashida Tlaib, when she was under Trump, she disrupted one of his press conferences. Do you remember that? She burst in and they had to kick her out. They dragged her away. And then she was saying, let's impeach the motherfucker. Great. Where is that energy right now? Where is it? You were doing it under Trump. I saw you. We all saw you. That was great, right? That was awesome. Can we have some of that now with Biden about this? What is this? How can you pass this when you have so many people that are starving? And Claudia was kind enough to drop this. Yeah, I know the stream is tripping. Excuse me, but Claudia was kind enough to drop this graph for me, and I mean, dude, like just student debt alone, right? You have this enormous bubble of student debt. It's 1.6, 1.7 trillion, right? I mean, it's absurd. You could cut that in half with one fiscal year with this budget. One fiscal year, you could do that. Right? Why not do that? Nope. Biden is thinking of maybe, taking away 10,000 or 50,000, if you're beyond lucky, of your student debt. And, college for all, that's $500 billion. You could cover that entirely, right? Just like Rashida said, you could have 4 years of public college, right? You could fund that. No, won't do it. Vaccines, if you wanted, right? You could have the Pfizer vaccine. It's $20 per dose. So, that's $40 for a full, for one person. So, I mean, that's 18 million people. No, how many is that? I can't read over here. It's too many figures, man. I mean, that's insane, right? $300 billion, you could expand Social Security. No, it won't do it. All right, that's half. If the Pentagon budget is 753 billion, right? You need less than half just to expand Social Security. I mean, the medical debt that you got 45 billion in medical debt in the United States. You could cover that several times over, right? That's less than 10%. So I find this absolutely ludicrous. I find this absolutely ridiculous that you have this country that is spending colossal amounts. It's the biggest amount in history, and no one bats an eye. And the people that you think you can reason with that are supposedly the most left in the party, in the Democratic Party, they just don't say anything. I would resign. I mean, if I were in their shoes, I would quit. Like, why would you be affiliated with a fucking death cult? That's what it is. It's a death cult. And that's it's not a joke. It's like, I mean, obviously it's satire, but like it's rooted in reality when we call it Uncle Joe's Rainbow Coalition death cult. That's what it is. When you have a country that spends, over 700 billion on death and destruction a year, that's a death cult. That is a fucking death cult. And it's a disgusting racket. So there you go. Obscene. Honestly, it's obscene. You guys are telling me that the NSA is messing with my live stream. Yes, I can tell that they are. I don't know what to do about that, unfortunately, because I've already restarted the stream once. But don't worry, worst case, all the segments will be up. And you should try watching on Rockfin as well, because I think Rockfin is okay. Nope. I don't know. I don't know what's happening on Rockfin. I'm going to restart it. They're bastards, man. Not Rockfin. I mean the NSA, the CIA. Okay, so anyway, thank you for your super chats. I'll get to them at the end of the live stream, of course, when we're done with the segments. Just give me a second. I'm restarting the Rockfin over here. Again, if you haven't subscribed to Rockfin, go make a free account, rokfin.com/RichardMedhurst, and you can make one there for free. And if you want, you can subscribe. It's $10 a month, and you'll get a premium of like every channel that you want, not just mine. Most of the people who do leftist news and stuff, they're already on there. Jimmy Dore, Nico House, everyone, they're already there. So it's really cool. Lee Camp, Whitney Webb, there are too many to name, but it's definitely to have other platforms, and of course, Substack. So I'm on there as well now. So hold on, let's get to this over here, okay? Don't worry, we got lots more, huh? All right. Yeah, I'm reading the log. It's telling me that it's dropping so many frames, and this is bastards, honestly. All right, I'm hoping this is going to help. Right, so let's keep on going, man. Let's keep on going. Right. All right, so Julian Assange, 11th of April, so just yesterday, it marks 2 years that he's been incarcerated, and that he was arrested in the Ecuadorian embassy in London. So, I'm gonna play you the video from when he was arrested, and then go into further detail about this. And yeah, it's really disturbing, honestly, what they did. They dragged him out of the embassy.
No worries.
So I mean, that was in 2019, right? And he had spent 7 years in the embassy. He had been given diplomatic, political asylum, and they tried also giving him a diplomatic passport afterwards to try and get him out of the embassy because, the Vienna Convention says that you can't enter the embassy of a foreign country because it's considered of a sovereign country because it's considered foreign soil. Nonetheless, just to show you how absurd and aggressive the UK is. At one point, they were actually threatening to storm the embassy, right? So they were threatening to violate the Vienna Convention and get into the embassy, right? And I mean, the Vienna Convention is about protecting diplomats. It also stipulates that you can't arrest a diplomat, right? And I was talking to Fidel Narvaez, who is the Ecuadorian consul, and I asked him about that. Like, you guys tried giving him a diplomatic passport so that, if he stepped outside the embassy, they wouldn't be able to arrest him. And he said, yeah, but the UK government refused to register him as a diplomat, right? I mean, there's so many violations going on. And, basically the day of his arrest, Ecuador withdrew the asylum request that they'd given him. And let me just show you this. This is from Moreno. Moreno, this guy got elected. He's not the one who had given Assange asylum originally, but he was elected, and the guy, he's on good terms with the United States. No surprise. So he starts claiming that Assange violated the asylum he was given. And I just want to play a short clip of what he's saying here, because I found this so interesting, right? How he tries to justify kicking him out. And so take a look at this.
Y de Caracas. A pesar de que se le solicitó en varias ocasiones que respete y cumpla dichas normas, violó particularmente la norma de no intervenir en asuntos internos de otros estados. La más reciente alerta en este sentido se dio en enero del 2019, cuando Wikileaks filtró documentos del Vaticano. Miembros claves de esta organización visitaron al señor Assange antes y después de dicha filtración. Esta y otras publicaciones han confirmado las sospechas que tiene el mundo.
Right, so he's saying that, Assange, he violated the terms of his political asylum because he was still working with WikiLeaks or linked to WikiLeaks. Yeah, well, no shit. What do you think? Why do you think he's being persecuted? Why do you think they're going after him? It's kind of like when people say that, Assange, he absconded bail, he jumped bail and you hid in the embassy. Well, no, he was given asylum. So, I mean, it's not like some person who just, refused to show up to court. No, he's subject to a political witch hunt, to persecution. And international law supersedes, it takes precedence. So it's such a moot point also. And I asked Neil Smeltzer about this, right? He's the UN Special Rapporteur on Torture. And there's an interview I did with him. It's on the channel. Go watch it. He visited Assange in the embassy, in Belmarsh prison. And, I asked him about the specific question, right? The people who claimed that, he absconded bail. Yeah, I mean, that's ridiculous. Every political witch hunt, right? I mean, is trying to persecute the target, using laws that they've cooked up for that, right? I mean, that's the whole. When the United States is charging Assange with the Espionage Act, I mean, like Neil Smeltzer said, it's the quintessential political crime, right? I mean, like, that's such a moot point. In any case, just again to show you how politically charged and motivated it is. They took Assange immediately to a court. So they dragged him out of the embassy. They took him to, I think at the time it was Westminster magistrates, and they immediately sent him to jail. The judge gave him the maximum sentence. So in the UK, the maximum sentence, if you jump bail, is 50 weeks. And it's not just that the judge gave him the 50 weeks. They sent him to Belmarsh prison, right? So this is a maximum security prison. It's category A. And you have people from Al Qaeda that are sent there. That's what it's for. It's for people that are notorious criminals. It's for the worst of the worst, and that's where they put him. Can you imagine? Like that shows you how absurd this is. I mean, just regardless, even if they put him in any jail, it's still an outrage that you're jailing a journalist because he published evidence of war crimes. But Belmarsh prison, I mean, it's like they're just rubbing it in people's faces. Like, yeah, this is a political witch hunt, and we're gonna make him suffer. Right, and it's really obscene. It's really absurd. I mean, just to give you an example, this guy Abu Qattada, he's a Jordanian cleric. I mean, even he was allowed out from Belmarsh prison. So here he is, and they put him on house arrest. Can you imagine? This guy is. They used to call him the right-hand man, Osama bin Laden's right-hand man in Europe. And, they put him on house arrest in the UK, and they were paying £100,000 a week just to keep him under surveillance. And in the end, they let him walk free, right? They extradited him to Jordan, and in Jordan he was found innocent, and now he's a free man. This Al-Qaeda leader, he's a free man, right? So they let him out of Belmarsh prison. he's allowed to go and live comfortably in house arrest, but Julian Assange, no. Julian Assange goes to Belmarsh and he stays there, and he's not allowed out on bail. You remember when the judge delivered the verdict in January? I covered that, and then just a few days later, we had the bail request hearing. Not in the Old Bailey. This was in Westminster Magistrates Court, and she refused him bail. Right, the guy, he hasn't seen his kids in 2 years. He's not allowed visitors because of COVID, and also because they're trying to punish him. And they're keeping him in solitary confinement. They won't even give him his winter clothes. That's how they're treating a journalist, right? He's not allowed to go live with his partner and his kids. He's deprived that. But this Al Qaeda scumbag, oh yeah, he's allowed to go out. What the fuck? And there's also another thing that this guy says, Moreno, the president of Ecuador. And they just had elections again, but I just want to. Hold on, I'm trying to find the exact quote, right? Okay.
Vinculado con Wikileaks y, por lo tanto, con las intromisiones de esta organización en asuntos de otros estados. Sobre el comportamiento del señor Assange, la paciencia del Ecuador ha llegado a su límite. Instaló equipos electrónicos de distorsión no permitidos, bloqueó las cámaras de seguridad de la misión del Ecuador en Londres, agredido y maltratado.
You know why I find that so hilarious? Yeah, the reason that Assange installed distortion equipment was because you were spying on him. And when he blocked the cameras, it was because of this, right? Take a look. So, I mean, they were spying on him inside of the embassy with the cameras and giving this to the CIA, right? UC Global is this Spanish company that was hired. And that's why. I mean, like that's why he had distortion equipment, because they were also using these microphones outside the embassy that would point towards the windows. And, they're very, it's like a shotgun microphone, right? But much more high end. And it could pick up the vibrations from the window. So Assange, he had a white noise generator inside the embassy to kill that. And, he would also go to the ladies' room to talk with his lawyers. And then when they figured that out, what the UC Global firm did on behalf of the CIA, they went and put microphones inside the ladies' room. They put one under the fire extinguisher. I mean, like, it just shows, he knows that. The Moreno, he knows that. And he's acting like Assange is he says it like, oh, he turned the embassy into a spy center. No, you're spying on him. Like, it's unbelievable, honestly. And they even tried to poison him. Right? They stole his kid's diaper because they wanted to have the DNA, or they tried to steal the kid's his child's diaper to see that to confirm that that's his child. And right now in Spain, you have this trial going on with UC Global because it's a Spanish firm, and two of the people who work there, and I heard their testimonies when I was in London. They talked about how there was also a plan to leave the door open and kidnap Assange and poison him. Holy shit, this is in the middle of London. Does no one care? Right? They claim, oh, it's a democracy, you have freedom of press. And this is how they treat journalists who actually challenge them. There's no freedom of press. It's all nonsense, right? It's all nonsense. And, I want to show you also just a second. Okay, I think my recording cut out. I don't know what that was, but damn, they're bugging me too today, huh? I seriously need to upgrade everything. And if that still doesn't help, well, you know. I know, my stuff froze again. Putain, c'est pas possible. Bref. All right, I'm just gonna keep. I'm gonna keep going. I don't know if it's still streaming, but whatever. Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, in London, you had Team Assange coming out to show support, and this is what they did. They went in. They had a bus. Right, they got a double-decker, which is really cool, to commemorate the 2nd anniversary. And they went outside the embassy to protest. And yeah, look at this also. You know, huge shout out, huge love to the activists. They're always keeping it real. They went to the Belmarsh prison as well, right? To protest. And I mean, they do that regularly, right? That's how brilliant they are. They do that regularly. So, you know, good on them.
Hands off Assange! US! UK! Hands off Assange! US!
They're really brilliant. So you know, respect to them. And again, I just want to highlight how absurd it is that Assange is being held in this maximum security jail. Although, again, it would be ridiculous in any prison. But it really shows you how politically motivated this thing is. And there was an effort to spy on him, and as I said, even a plot to kidnap and potentially kidnap and assassinate him. I mean, it's obscene, right? And UC Global was working with the CIA. We know this. So, you know, these countries, they want to talk about how they're democracies and they uphold human rights. They don't. This is the UK doing the bidding of the United States. And, you know, Stella Morris, who is Assange's partner, she published, she was interviewed for this piece in The Guardian. And, you know, she talked about how Britain is damaging its reputation by keeping Julian Assange in jail. Absolutely. I mean, you know, I think this is one of many points, once again, that you can make about this case with Assange. You know, and it's like, it really shows their hypocrisy, right? Like, how do you want to come along and accuse China or Russia or whatever, you know, regime that is targeted by the United States or the UK for human rights abuses? Like, when you are abusing human rights, I mean, not to mention the fact that the things Julian Assange published, what did they expose? They exposed human rights abuses. They exposed war crimes. So, I mean, not only was the nature of his work directly proving that they're hypocrites and that the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq were based on lies and that there was no nation building, they were killing and massacring people. But on top of it, he is also being persecuted, and it presents such a threat to journalists everywhere. And it's so telling that, of course, you know, most of the mainstream media, they're silent. I mean, yeah, you see a couple of pieces here and there, but, you know, they're not doing as much as they could be doing at all. I mean, there is a real media blackout about this. And even if you go look back in September of 2011, when, you know, these, 2010, when, you know, the State Department cables were published, unredacted, and it caused this huge shitstorm. I mean, they immediately turned against Assange, right? Immediately. The Guardian, Le Monde, Presse, they all started going like, oh my God, this is totally reckless. And, you know, we even though, keep in mind, these same outlets had worked as media partners, right? And they had profited immensely from these leaks, right? So they immediately turned against Assange. And David Lee, he published, you know, a Guardian journalist, he published the password to those cables in a book. I mean, it's just like, there are a lot of snakes. That's the point here. And it's very unfortunate that Ecuador, their elections went the way that they did today. Well, now yesterday. And, it's really unfortunate that when Moreno came in, what he did to Assange, it really is. And, the guy he's still sitting there after 2 years. I mean, he's keep in mind, like, he's not serving a sentence, right? The 50 weeks are up for his quote unquote absconding bail. He was given political asylum. He didn't abscond bail. And he's not serving a sentence right now. He's not been convicted of a crime. What the hell is he doing in jail, never mind a maximum security prison? What is he doing there? They're trying to break him. That's what it's about. And I just finished with one thing. I would just finish with one thing. Stefania Morizzi, right? She worked as a media partner with WikiLeaks. I did a wonderful interview with her. She's awesome. So go watch it's on the channel. She said yesterday that colleagues tell me the Assange case is complex. It's not. After revealing war crimes, he has never known freedom again, while the war criminals have never spent a day in prison. His partner, Stella Morris, and their children live in anxiety while the war criminals live comfortably. Yeah, right? You're never going to see Tony Blair or George Bush or Donald Rumsfeld or Jack Straw or Blunkett or Paul Wolfowitz, Condoleezza Rice, Colin Powell, Cheney. You're never going to see them dragged out of their homes and put into a van and taken to a court and then sent immediately to the maximum security prison. God, I wish we would. I wish we would, because they deserve nothing less. But you're never going to see that, right? And that's what pissed me off. That this is the one thing that I will never forgive, that I will never forget, that I will never stop talking about, because it's such a disgusting, obvious truth, right? That the things Julian Assange published, these are crimes. They're crimes of wars that were started by these politicians. And none of them are here, and only he is here. I mean, that in of itself is the biggest injustice of all. Never mind the fact that he has spent 7 years in the embassy. His health is deteriorated. During the trial, the hearing, the extradition hearing, we heard from multiple doctors how his mental health would decline because of that. He couldn't even go see a dentist, for example, because he was trapped in there. So you have to keep in mind that those 7 years, it's arbitrary detention. So it's not just, he spent 2 years in Belmarsh prison. No, he spent like the last decade being persecuted. Do you understand? That's what you need to understand over here, because I think once you explain that to people, most people, they're just naturally horrified, right? They're like, this is inconceivable that this is happening. And so that's why we always need to raise awareness about it. And again, it's not just about Assange, although that's a big part of the persecution against him personally, but to journalists worldwide, because they're trying to make an example out of him, right? It's like, this is what will happen to you if you challenge us. If you expose our racket, if you expose our war crimes, if you expose the human rights violations, the torture, kidnapping, the rendition, we will put you in jail like this, and then we will accuse you of being a spy, and then we will smear you, and we will character assassinate you, we will destroy your family, we will do this to you. That's what it's about, and so we have to oppose that, right? We can't allow it to happen for so many reasons, and yeah. So again, I don't even know if we're still live or not. I'm still trying to record, but either the NSA are messing with my computer, or I don't know. I think it's gone to shit, most likely, right? I'm only half or quarter joking when I say the CIA is doing it. It's mostly the computer is shit. So I need to upgrade that. And thank you to everyone who's contributed to the GoFundMe. I need to actually go and get one soon. I need to actually get a computer, because this is absurd now. So just give me a second. I'm trying to fix something and start it back up. Hopefully it's gonna work. What's the name of the DoD spokesman again? Kirby? God, that guy, he looks like a cartoon character. He really does. Kirby. All right, I'm still trying over here, because we still got tons more segments. So don't go anywhere. And again, thank you so much for your super chats. I'll read them all at the end in a timely fashion. 2 secondes, on va faire ça. All right. I think that should be a bit better now. So, yeah, they're saying my stream is, I don't know, YouTube is still warning me. Anyway, I'm going to keep going. So, here we go. Right. Right. So there's been an attack on the Natanz nuclear facility in Iran, and it's widely assumed and also practically admitted that Israel was behind it. I mean, no surprise there. Let me show you what's going on here. So here, this is from the Jerusalem Post, April 12th. Mossad is behind the cyber attack on Iran's Natanz nuclear facility, all right? And so, I mean, there are various ways we know this is true because, first of all, Israeli media, they were like all over the place. They're just basically saying that, yeah, the Mossad was behind it. And, you know, the only thing that's not exactly clear is whether it was a cyber attack or not, because, you know, basically, this facility at Natanz, it's been subject to a cyber attack in the past. In 2010, under Obama, the CIA worked with Mossad on a virus, on a computer virus called Stuxnet, right? And so, you know, like most scientific installations in the world, like most laboratories, there's an air gap. The computers are not connected to the internet, right, for security reasons. And so they somehow managed to get this virus in, and what it would do, it would spin the centrifuges at 3 times the rate and break them. And they sabotaged it, basically, you know? I mean, it's insane. And that was in 2010. And then, of course, from 2010 to 2012, and again, a few months ago, you know, you had Israel killing nuclear scientists in Iran, like in broad daylight. You know, they'd come up on a moped, stick a bomb, or just shoot the guy in front of his house. I mean, just to show you over here, like this one, for example, this piece from 2011, right? They killed 35-year-old Dariush Rezai, and if you go on Wikipedia, I mean, this is just a list of them over here. And then the latest one was Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, right? And I mean, they don't care if it's a government official, you know, they don't care if he's a nuclear scientist. They go and kill people with impunity. They sabotage nuclear sites, which is basically nuclear terrorism, frankly. And last year in June, I believe, there was a mysterious explosion at this site again, at Natanz, right? So, yeah, and by the way, for the assassinations, if you go and read, what's the name of the book again? Rise and Kill First by Ronan Bergman. He interviewed tons of people from the Mossad. I did like 1,000 interviews, and you know, they admit that they were behind this, right? We know this as a fact that Israel killed those scientists, and you know, it's so of course it's no surprise that they did this yesterday. And I just want to play you a clip over here from Sayyid Mohammed Marendi, right? So he's a professor at University of Tehran, and he's a good friend. He's a great friend of the show, and there's a long interview I did with him, which you should go watch. It's on the channel. And I've had him on my TV show as well. So check this out, right? I want to play this clip for you and listen to what he says about the attack, right?
Good to have you with us today. Iran is vowing revenge against Israel after a blackout at an underground nuclear site in Natanz. Tehran alleges its systems were breached by Tel Aviv and has branded the cyber attack an act of terrorism.
Various sources confirm that the Zionist regime was behind this incident. Iran's response will be to exact revenge on the Zionist regime at the right time and place.
The Natanz facility suffered an outage on Sunday, a day after the president unveiled a new set of advanced centrifuges for faster uranium enrichment. And the incident threatens to overshadow ongoing talks between Iran and world powers on reviving the 2015 nuclear deal. Now, Tehran claims the attack was designed precisely to scupper those talks. Well, we're now joined live here on the program by political analyst Syed Mohammed Marandi from the University of Tehran, joining us here on RT. Great to see you today. It's tough to get a really clear picture of exactly what happened. We understand the report of a power outage or a blackout. Is there any report that you can tell us about damage that might have occurred to the facility?
Well, they're saying it wasn't a cyber attack, and I think that's probably accurate because it's not connected to the internet. One of the halls was damaged. The Natanz facilities has 4 or 5 halls where enrichment takes place, and it wasn't in the halls where they had their advanced centrifuges, the IR9, 8, and IR6. So the old centrifuges were damaged in one of the halls, and they're saying that in 7 to 9 weeks they will be producing as normal, and they will be replacing the old centrifuges with the more advanced and the state-of-the-art centrifuges from here on.
Mr. Marandi,
but the belief is that this was a joint operation.
Yeah, I just wanted to pick you up on that because the Israeli media were quick to boast that the outage was the work of Mossad, while on Sunday, the Israeli Prime Minister had this to say. Have a quick listen to this.
The fight against Iran and its proxies, the fight against Iran's nuclear program, the fight against Iran's nuclearization is a huge task.
Mr. Marandi, is it possible that this could be interpreted as some kind of admission, do you think?
Well, if it is, that, and I think it is, that means that the Israeli regime is acknowledging that they've carried out an attack on a sovereign country. And, of course, that would normally be condemned by the international community. It would go to the UN Security Council, and the regime would face sanctions. But we know the Israeli regime regularly bombs Syrian army soldiers. They say they bomb Iranians, but we know they don't. There are no names of any dead or murdered Iranians coming out from the Israeli media. They bomb Syrian government soldiers to help the extremists. They strike at Gaza with impunity. And they fly over Lebanese airspace with impunity. And no one says anything. So obviously the Europeans and the Americans will allow the Israelis to get away with everything. But this wasn't an act that was carried out by the Israelis alone. In the past, the Israelis worked with the CIA and CENTCOM, and it is believed that by some that some of the IAEA inspectors may have passed on information. But apparently it was an act of sabotage. An individual caused damage to the electrical power, which caused damage to one of the halls.
Mr. Marandi, I'm running very low on time here. Just one more question, if I may. Tehran has promised revenge. What kind of form could that possibly take, do you think?
Well, the Israeli regime has murdered an Iranian deputy minister a few months ago with U.S. support. This act of sabotage was probably carried out with U.S. support. No one believes the notion that the Israelis act separately from the Americans. It's just beyond belief. So I think that ultimately the Iranians will respond, and they will respond in a big way for a number of things that the Israelis have done. But the Iranians are patient, and they are known for their patience. But I think the last 20 years have shown that Iran knows where to push things.
Mr. Syed Mohammed Marandi from the University of Tehran, a political analyst joining us here on RT International. Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it. Thank you.
right? So, I mean, you know, right now in Vienna, okay, they're having talks about resuming the nuclear deal, indirect talks, right? So you have two groups that are working. You have one that is focused on what Iran could do to return to the original limitations of the JCPOA, and another group, another working group about how the U.S. will return to the deal. And Israel hates the nuclear deal, right? For a variety of reasons. Netanyahu hates the nuclear deal, right? I mean, that's one of the main reasons he had beef with Obama, right? Because it's not about, you know, you would think that, okay, well, hold on a second. The deal is supposed to limit Iran's nuclear program, which again, it's a civilian nuclear program. Like, yeah, I mean, logically, you need a nuclear program to get nuclear weapons, but Iran is not making nuclear weapons. Otherwise, you know, the entire planet would know. Iran is subject to the most, you know, strict and stringent verification of any country. Like, if there's one country where you know they don't have nuclear weapons, it's Iran, because the IAEA has 24/7 cameras in there. They have inspectors going all over the place. You can't make a nuclear bomb in 2021 or, you know, even 20 years ago without someone knowing, right? It just doesn't work. And the JCPOA, it's supposed to limit Iran's breakout time. Israel knows that they don't have nukes. So you would think that, okay, well, if they're so scared about that, then why don't they like the nuclear deal? Because it's not about nukes. They want Iran's support for resistance in Palestine, in Lebanon, in Syria, in Iraq to be in that deal as well, right? They want to basically, you know, neuter Iran. They want to kneecap its defense capabilities. They also want the ballistic missile program included in that, which is why Trump left the deal. He wanted these two things in there, which is a Zionist position. It's an Israeli position. It's not about nukes. Nothing to do with that. It's just bullshit. It's just propaganda. And, you know, Iran is part of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Under that treaty, you have the right to a civilian nuclear program. So, I mean, Israel doesn't care, right? The United States doesn't care. They don't even want Iran to have that either, because you also have to consider Iran's economy is based on, well, largely based on oil, not only oil, but it is one of the world's largest oil producers. And you know, having nuclear energy lets you kind of wean off of that. You don't have to depend on that. And they won't even tolerate that either, right? So there are a lot of reasons. But anyway, just going back to what happened, they have the talks going on here right now in Vienna. And it's so typical of Israel to come and sabotage that, right? It's so goddamn typical. I mean, what you essentially have, they did this with the Palestinians, by the way. Like, every time there was almost going to be some kind of, you know, breakthrough with the peace talks with the Palestinians, they always go and sabotage it because they don't want a two-state solution. They say they want a two-state solution, but they don't. And I feel like, you know, the United States is playing good cop. Yeah, how sarcastic. You know, they're playing good cop and Israel's playing bad cop. So, you know, like the United States saying, oh yeah, we want diplomacy, right? And Israel is, of course, going behind the scenes in the dark and just blowing shit up or carrying out cyber attacks or killing nuclear scientists. And they're trying to squeeze Iran from both sides, right? And I don't know, man. I mean, right now, what I've seen on social media, for some of the reactions, and again, this is just anecdotal. It's by no means, you know, a full representation. But from what I've seen on social media, you have a lot of Iranians that are saying that, you know, well, Israel is trying to sabotage the talks. Like, they want Iran to just pack up and leave, right? And they want just to ruin the entire diplomatic process. And then you have other people that are saying, well, you know, Iran has been too soft and too patient. And if you don't stand up to a bully, they're going to keep bullying you. And I understand both viewpoints, if we're being honest, because, you know, both are true. And it's I don't know, man. It's a tough situation. It really is. They are trying to squeeze Iran. They are trying to destroy Iran. And, you know, I just say one thing. Iran invented chess, right? So they understand how to be patient. They understand how to think long term. So I would not underestimate a civilization that is thousands of years old at all, right? I would not do that. So, in any case, just going back to Jawad Zarif, who is the foreign minister for Iran. Again, I regard him as one of the classic diplomats, right? Like Bashar al-Ja'fari. These are like old school real diplomats, you know what I'm saying? So, he put out a tweet over here saying that he wrote to the UN Secretary General about what Israel did, right? And he calls it an act of nuclear terrorism. That really is the right term, right? Deliberate targeting of a safeguarded nuclear facility with high risk of indiscriminate release of radioactive material is nuclear terrorism and a war crime. It is, man. It is. I mean, think of how irresponsible that is, that they're just regularly sabotaging a nuclear site. I mean, can you imagine if there was a spill? Can you imagine if it got out of hand, that the damage they thought is going to cause, which even if like a bolt fell out of the wall, even if like one nut was damaged, it's still wrong. Like, how, it's not your country. What are you doing there? Right? It's still an attack, even if one bolt falls out of the wall. But just think of the consequences. What could happen, right? If you had a radioactive spill. This is insane. I don't know any other country on the face of this planet that goes and assassinates nuclear scientists in broad daylight. That goes and bombs other countries like Syria week in, week out. And then they attack a nuclear site multiple times. And no one says anything. Again, like, could you imagine if Iran was doing this, like assassinating Israeli scientists in Palestine in broad daylight? There would be a war. Like the next minute, there would be a war, which is what Israel would love, by the way, right? So they can drag the United States into that with them. There would be a war. Can you imagine if Iran sabotaged a nuclear facility in Israel? Yeah, they have nukes, huh? In Israel, we mean Palestine, occupied Palestine. So there's a clear double standard here, right? There's a clear double standard. They are literally committing terrorism. This is a terrorist act, one of many, and nuclear terrorism on top of it, right? Like they don't even care if it does damage to the environment. It could do damage to several countries. When Chernobyl happened, for example, it's still uninhabitable to this day. At the time, all of the surrounding countries, right? You had to have a lockdown. You couldn't go outside because of they had to go and clean all of the streets. It's a mess, right? You had an entire cloud carrying nuclear particles to other countries. Think how outrageously irresponsible what they're doing is. And criminal, right? It's truly criminal. And, as Professor Merendi pointed out, 100% the United States is with them. I would even go a bit further and say that just like with Stuxnet, for example, I wouldn't put it past Israel to just do things, in the spur of the moment without even telling the United States. They did that with Stuxnet. They started modifying the code and released it. Like they don't care. And it's absolutely insane that they get away with this kind of stuff. So, you have the nuclear talks resuming tomorrow on the 14th. And again, these are indirect talks. And Iran has made it very clear they will not tolerate anything less than complete removal of sanctions. And they don't want just the Trump-era sanctions that are nuclear. They want all of the Trump-era sanctions, right? So it's not just pertaining to the nuclear deal. They want all sanctions lifted. And you have to consider that this has been an unfair deal in some ways, many ways, because, Iran is subject to verification. There are cameras monitoring their nuclear facilities. They have special seals. Every single gram of fissile material, it's counted by the CIA. Yeah, they're probably getting information too by the IAEA. And the thing is that, what about the United States? Like, who's verifying that the United States and their allies are keeping their end of the deal? Who's verifying that? There needs to be verification, that shipping, banking, the oil sector, that these and much more, they're not going to be, once again, overturned and have sanctions reimposed on them by another Trump or, whatever ghoul comes out of the next administration. So it's a difficult process, right? And again, there are a lot of mixed emotions about this, which I can understand, because it's like, even when you act in good faith with the United States and their allies, look what they do, right? Even when Iran holds up its end of the deal, they renege on their commitments, and then they reimpose sanctions, and they let Israel, right? They let Israel go and continue assassinating nuclear scientists and committing acts of sabotage and terrorism. It's insane. So I mean, you know, I understand the people who are saying like, oh no, they're doing this on purpose to try and get Iran to just walk out. But I also understand the people who are saying that it's like, at what point do you say enough is enough, right? Again, Israel is a criminal enterprise, and they really get away with genocide. They get away with terrorism. Even when they assassinated in Dubai, you remember this? I think it was also a decade ago. So yeah, about a decade ago now. They assassinated someone from Hamas, I believe it was, and they used fake Australian passports, fake British passports, right? They falsified passports of their own so-called allies, and no one did a shit. No punishment, no controversy, nothing, right? Think about that. Insane. It's really insane what they get away with. Like, they even commit crimes against their own allies in the name of their own allies, and they just get away with it. You know, it's staggering, honestly. So anyway, we'll see how these these talks go, and you know, what effect this has on the program. In any case, I think it's important to know one more thing. You know, Israel always exaggerates what they do. That's how you do counterintelligence, right? You mix in truth with lies, and sometimes just flat out lies you release in the media. Because if you go and look at what they're saying in the media over here, right? This is from Jerusalem Post. They're saying that Israeli explosion sets back Natanz enrichment facility by 9 months. 9 months. And, you know, if you look at other sources, they're saying, no, it wasn't a cyber attack, it was an explosion. And if you go and you look at when they assassinated Fakhrizadeh a few months ago, you know, there's a story that came out that they actually used a long-range 1-ton gun that was controlled by AI, and it's just like, yeah, okay, calm down, you know, like, just they love exaggerating because, you know, one, it's propaganda, like, oh, look how amazing we are, look how deep we can penetrate into Iran, and the Iranians are so stupid, and we smuggled a 1-ton gun without them noticing. I mean, it's just nonsense. And the other effect of it, of course, the other purpose of counterintelligence, you know, they try to overstate their capabilities, right? The British would do this, the Americans would do this during World War II. I mean, you would have fake stories in the BBC, you would have fake troop movements. I mean, just before D-Day, for example, they set up an entire fake army off the coast of, so just opposite Pas-de-Calais in France. You know, they did this to make the Germans think that the invasion was coming from there. A fake army, an entire fake army, rubber tanks. They even took General Patton and put him there to make it seem even more legit. So yeah, you know, it's just part of counterintelligence. I think a lot of it. They try to overstate their capabilities, just, you know. So always take that with a grain of salt. But something definitely happened, right? Iran is calling this an act of terrorism, and that's what it is. Like when you were blowing up nuclear scientists and nuclear facilities and assassinating people for you know, no, this is blatant terrorism. It's state-sponsored terrorism. It's state terrorism, just flat out. And no one does anything to them, right? Nothing. They just get away with it. So yeah. All right, I'm going to read your super chats if you'll give me a second to try and find them in my YouTube. God, I really need to get a new computer. This is just absurd at this point. Hold on. Wow, we're almost at 36,000 subscribers. Isn't that dope? You guys are awesome. Seriously, you guys are awesome. And once again, I'd implore you, make an account on Rockfin. We're 5,000 subscribers now on Rockfin, right? So that's 5,000 free subscribers, and I think we're almost at almost at 100, something like 80 something in people who subscribed. Thank you so much, because again, you're not just helping me, you're helping everyone who's on Rockfin. Like there are no ads, first of all, and if you go watch like a Jimmy Dore video, or you go and watch like Whitney Webb, you know, they get paid from those $10, which I think it's amazing, right? So it's good to have another platform. Again, rokfin.com. Definitely make an account. So I'll just find your super chats over here. Let me get to those. All right, I think I found them. Loading. We got one over here from Wesley. It says, I read your article on Substack and it was awesome. Love your show. Thank you, Wesley. I really appreciate that. I'm glad you liked it. I was just a tiny bit nervous putting it out. Well, it's not even my first article, but I was just like, I don't know why. But I'm glad you liked it. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. Knowledge Gizmo says, tell the NSA to stop messing with your money. Yeah, I will, man. I'm going to go shit on them. So Kristen sent a sticker that says, keep it up. I appreciate that very much. Thank you, Kristen. And Totally Awesome says, honestly, I gave up on the Democratic Party long ago. Yeah, it's interesting reading comments sometimes on when that happened, right? Because some people are like, oh, well, I voted for Obama, and then later I realized that he was a fraud. And then other people are like, they had their awakening when Bernie, dropped out for Hillary and also dropped out for Biden. So I mean, it's interesting always seeing what exactly, gave people their so-called political awakening. But yeah, it's a Republican Party with another name. It's the Republican Party with another name. It's like one party system, man. And that's really the ultimate a scam of the United States, right? They've convinced people that they have a democracy when it's actually a one-party system, and they've convinced people that they have a free press when it's actually a corporate media. It's really astonishing. Vito, thank you for the peach. That is a peach, right? Or yeah, I think so. The peach sticker. I appreciate it. And Jordan says, quote, you can resist Julian Assange. Yeah. That was very powerful when he was getting arrested, that he said that. It's really like, I didn't want to play the clip because I don't like watching it. It's just really messed up. It's really horrible. But, that guy is literally the resistance. I mean, look at how strong-willed and determined he is, right? I think many people, perhaps myself included, right? I mean, man, we're already given up a long time ago. How much pressure that guy has come under is insane. Also, honestly, Vito says, it's funny that the UK government can give safe passage to the people whom they consider to be persecuted by foreign governments, but not Assange. Exactly, right? That's the entire thing. I mean, thank you for spelling that out so succinctly, because with Abu Qatada, the entire thing is that they wanted to extradite him, but the EU blocked it because of human rights grounds, right? Because the testimony against him in Jordan, where they wanted to charge him for 2 terror plots, was obtained under torture. So, according to the European Union's Convention on Human Rights, it's the European Convention on Human Rights. It's part of the Council of Europe, excuse me. ECHR, right? I always get it confused with the European Court of Human Rights. But the European Convention on Human Rights, it says that you can't give someone an unfair trial or send them to a country where they would experience an unfair trial. Now, Julian Assange, I mean, he hasn't actually gone to the European court yet with his case because he's still trying to fight the extradition in the UK. And if that fails, then he has the option to go to the European Court of Human Rights. Of course, I'm hoping that it's not going to last that long, first of all, and that he will, most importantly, be able to uphold the judge's decision in the UK. Although, again, it's not the best decision because she agreed with all the political charges, and that's what's happening now with the, that's a point of contention that the Assange legal team are thinking about, because you can cross appeal, right? The United States is appealing the judge's decision not to extradite Assange, but the defense, Assange's defense, they're thinking of cross appealing, meaning the charges under the Espionage Act and the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, the one charge, because they don't want a decision that is still going to shit on press freedoms, right? And that is important because, again, as much as it is about Assange as a person, right, it's still also about journalism as a whole. It still criminalizes journalism, right? Because, like, you know, hypothetically, if tomorrow morning Julian Assange is in perfect health, like, she would extradite him, right? Or if tomorrow morning U.S. prisons were so, you know, like squeaky clean and you know, and you had no bad conditions in U.S. prisons, she would extradite him. Like, that's not acceptable, right? That's not acceptable. I don't care how good U.S. prisons are. He should not be extradited. He should not be in jail because he's a journalist and he didn't commit a crime. So, yeah, Vito, thank you again for the super chat. Says it's not surprising that the US, UK are humanitarian in name only, right? We have think tanks and media circuses to curry favors for weapons manufacturers. Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, that article that I showed you from The Hill, where they're displeased at Biden's military budget, even though it's the biggest one in history, is written by some person from the Heritage Foundation. Like, you know, these are the people who are writing these articles in mainstream media, right? Maxim says Adelson and Zios were behind extraditing Assange. So I think you're talking about Sheldon Adelson, right? Well, I mean, absolutely, because the company that spied on Assange, UC Global, from what I recall, Las Vegas Sands, which is the company owned by Sheldon Adelson, right? It was this huge Zionist. He died not long ago, in December, I think. That was the front, which interacted with UC Global, right? And yeah, so he definitely had a hand in that, absolutely. Vito says PBS groomed terrorist Al-Jolani and censored its own program of China's alleviation campaign. Yeah, so has that come out yet? Because we only saw a tiny fragment of it, of the interview. I don't think it's come out yet, but yeah, I mean, they're basically, you know, trying to rehabilitate his image when he's a goddamn Al-Qaeda leader. Like, it's insane, right? And they did this with bin Laden as well. You know, you had newspaper headlines saying, like, look, oh, he's a freedom fighter, and then he's like most wanted man on the FBI list. So, I mean, yeah, they go back and forth, right? They go back and forth, the United States. And of course, they're trying to go to war with China, at the very least with the Cold War. I can't believe Farid was able to point that out on CNN, but yeah, it's accurate, right? They're trying to portray China as, oh, they're human rights violators. Like, look who's talking, right? Look who's talking, honestly. And oh, the Belt and Road Initiative is so bad. They want to finance now independent media. I don't see how that would be independent, but they want to finance media that portrays the Belt and Road Initiative in a negative light. Of course, right? Because they can't stand competition because they're capitalists. They're trying to monopolize, and of course they can't stand other countries doing well because then they can't bully them, right? So bully them into submission. So yeah, unfortunately, mainstream media, that's their mouthpiece. Some people says TYT and Cenk say they can't trust Assange. What a joke. I'm not interested in those clowns, man. I mean, I'm assuming you're referring to that clip where he's with Anna, and I think it's like from, what is it, 2016 or is it 2019? It's from a few years back. We looked at it just a few weeks ago. Excuse me. Yeah, it's obscene, right? Like they still try to do this smear that, oh, he leaked the he leaked the DNC emails to the Podesta emails to help Trump win against Hillary. Hillary was shit. Like, she was gonna lose anyway. Trust me, it's not because of the emails. You know, if you go back and you look at the DNC emails, they were actually trying to prop up Trump. That's Hillary's fault. Like, that was the DNC strategy to get a Pied Piper candidate. Like, you built Trump, like, not just the system that you know nurtured and enabled him to become who he is, but also his candidacy as president. That was a strategy. They picked him out. They thought, oh, he's so dumb and so crappy that if we actually make him look good and he becomes the candidate, then we'll surely win in a landslide. And it backfired on them, right? Not to mention that, of course, Hillary's record is crap, and people had enough of this neoliberal stuff. So there's a lot of factors, but it's not because of Assange. That's just nonsense. And so you still have a lot of so-called progressive media that are so indoctrinated and brainwashed by that they don't want to cover Assange. Like they're afraid to be associated with that, which is the dumbest thing ever, because number one, it's not true that the the DNC Podesta emails came from a state actor. So by definition, it's not Russia. On top of that, it's obscene that Julian, like, if Julian Assange holds so much power that he can choose the next president of the United States, why didn't he help someone win that would not prosecute him? Like, what is that, right? Why did Trump launch a fucking why did he unseal this indictment against him then? Like, they are so disconnected from reality. Nothing they say makes any sense. Right? If he's buddies with Trump, why is Pompeo, why is Trump trying to put him in jail for 175 years? Are you high or something? Like, do you listen to yourself? And of course, it just goes to show you that Biden is just like Trump, because he's continuing the persecution and prosecution, right? And if TYT and Cenk want to say that they can't trust Assange, well, I can't trust them, honestly. Mexicanator, thank you for the tip, says. Mexicanator says, God bless Israel for sabotaging the Natanz reactor. Well, Israel is not a real country, so I don't know what you're talking about. If you mean the Zionists that are occupying Palestine, yeah, they're terrorists. They always have been, by the way. Before you had the Israeli Defense Forces, which is the correct name is the Israeli Occupation Forces. You had, again, it's the same book. Go read Rise and Kill First from Ron and Bergman. Before that, the precursor to that, you had the Hashemir, you had Haganah, you had these militias of people that had emigrated from Europe to Palestine, and they would just straight up just assassinate like Jews who were opposed to Zionism, right? There was a Jew, I think it was a rabbi who was on his way from Palestine to London to make the case against having a state of Israel, and they assassinated him. They just fucking shot him dead in the street. Right? Another Jew who was opposed to Zionism. They literally just shot him dead in the street. And they would go and execute other British troops. They bombed the King David Hotel, for example. They killed dozens of people. They were just straight up killing anyone who disagrees with them. That's what the IDF comes from, right? So, that's all I'm going to say there, man. Great book. You should go read it. Jordan Allen says, opposing imperialism is hold on, it's still loading. I can't see the give me 1 second. Opposing imperialism is an act of love, humanitarianism in its most obvious form. Don't let the psychos trick you. Humanity. Yeah, I absolutely agree, man. I absolutely agree. It's it is all about humanity. I mean, most of the places that are being targeted, invaded, bombed. Like, I've not been there. Like, I haven't been to Venezuela before, but I still feel empathy for people in Venezuela under those sanctions, right? And same thing with Libya. What happened to Libya? It's destroyed. I don't know anyone from Libya. I've never been there, right? But it's still heartbreaking. And I was talking to my cousin yesterday. Not Roni, who's been on the show before, another one of my cousins, and he's in Damascus, and he told me, like, you have to wait 2 days, 48 hours sometimes at the gas station just to fill up your car with gas, with benzene. And if you want rabtat khibz, like a bag of bread, you have to wait minimum 2-3 hours. Like, what is the point of all this? What is this needless suffering for? And again, it's not just about fuel and bread, right? Which is bad enough. It's also about things like, the United States thinks that toothpaste is a dual-use good. So, like, you even toothpaste is sanctioned, right? Yeah, that's real. That's a thing. Toothpaste, People cannot get their hands on gas. You have these blue cans for cooking for your stove. They can't get their hands on that either. It's so expensive now. Everything is heating oil. You name it, there's a shortage, and it's terrible. So, I mean, like Biden just continues that shit and no one says anything. They act like it's not happening. This is astonishing. It's astonishing, man. And, you know, it's heartbreaking because, like, how do you even help? You can't help because everything, the banking sector is under sanctions. Like, you can't even send money there because the banks won't send it. You know, like, there's a shortage on foreign currency, and, you know, the Lebanese economy is hit as well. So, I mean, they're dealing with their own problem, which impacts Syria as well. Like, it's so messed up, the situation. And, you know, they're just trying to kill people slowly, bit by bit. People are dying, you know, like actually dying because of the sanctions. And it's not just like, oh, an inconvenience. I have to wait 2 days to fill up my car. No, people are fucking dying, dude. Like, there's a shortage on everything. You understand? I have an interview that I did with Alina Duhan. She's the UN Special Rapporteur on Sanctions, and I'm gonna upload that soon. And it's I think it's almost an hour long. I'm not sure, but you know, she told me I'm not going to spoil the whole thing, obviously, but you know, just it's too long. You have to watch all of it. You really should. But one point she told me, like, for example, how, you know, kids in Venezuela, they're getting like you know, like 2 pencils a year or something, like obscene. And you know, this is because before the sanctions, yeah, you had economic problems in the country, of course, but the oil that Venezuela has, it was 99% of their income, and after sanctions, it's gone down to 1%. And every administration did this, right? George Bush started putting sanctions on Venezuela. Then Obama put more sanctions. Then Donald Trump put even more sanctions. And Biden just keeps them. I covered this. I did a whole broadcast on sanctions in Syria and Venezuela. And you should definitely go watch it. It's so messed up, man. And again, it's not just like about school supplies, which is terrible enough. Like, what are you doing to these kids that can't go to school, right? You're destroying an entire generation. It's not just that, but it's also the fact that there's food shortages. You know, the public infrastructure is crumbling. Like you know, people die from this. And the other day we were looking at Madeleine Albright, for example. I mean, in Iraq, you had 500,000 kids die from UN sanctions, right? That's what's unfortunate about the UN. It's been hijacked since its inception, unfortunately, by these imperialist powers of permanent veto, right? And of course, the U.S. is always going to block Israel from being punished, right, with their veto power. But they'll definitely use their influence and their power to sway the UN to do things like sanctions, right? Even when it kills hundreds of thousands of Iraqi kids, absolutely insane. And now, for example, with Syria, they're trying to, like Blinken, he says that he wants more border crossings open to get aid into Syria. But they don't tell you that the aid would go to terrorists, right? Because the border crossings are in Idlib, right? They don't want the aid to go to Damascus, to the government. They want the aid to go to Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. And we saw how they're not even giving it to the people. It's like a mob, right? They just take the goods, the aid, and then they just sell it off, right? It's incredible. And you look at Venezuela, for example, where they refused to give Venezuela their gold back, even when Venezuela said, okay, well, let us, and this is also with Iran, by the way, they were trying to say, okay, let's not take the money directly, like just give it to the UN and let the UN buy medical supplies for us or vaccines. And they just won't let it happen, right? I think South Korea tried to give back, like they have 7 billion in Iranian assets. I think they wanted just 1 billion, and then the Biden administration is like, no, fuck you, you're not giving them anything. Like these people are just, they're evil, honestly. So, you know, it's heartbreaking, man. And that's why people need to understand sanctions is just as deadly as war, if not more sometimes, right? So I got a super chat over here on PayPal from Robin. Robin says, could you please help me set up a successful petition and campaign to free Daniel Hale, who whistle-blew the Obama drone strikes? So, I mean, absolutely. And you know, the thing is that, what's the other whistleblower's name? I think Robert Schulte. I'm not sure if I'm saying his name correctly, but he's being mistreated in prison, and he did the Vault 7 leaks for WikiLeaks. There are so many people that, again, not just Assange, there are so many other whistleblowers that are still being prosecuted and persecuted. And yeah, you know, we absolutely have to raise awareness. So, I mean, if you want, hit me up on my email. It's rmedhurst@protonmail.com, right? If hold on, let me type it out in the chat. I'm trying again. Nope, hold on. I'm like this close to throwing this computer out of the goddamn window. Okay, there you go. I put it in the chat. So I hope that helps. So the Rockfin stream shut down a couple of times. You'll have to excuse me for that. So if there were super chats that I missed, I'm terribly sorry. Again, I need to fix the issues that we're having. But with that said, if you guys have any questions, I mean, shoot, go right ahead. I'm still going to try and pull this up on the screen if it works. There we go. So that's the Venmo, the CashApp, the PayPal. You can send me questions or whatever you want included. It's all good. You know, just don't say any naughty words, because PayPal doesn't like when you say Iran or Syria or whatever. Yeah, I'm serious. They actually will hold your donation. That's how ridiculous they are. And by the way, we actually got one person who just signed up on Patreon. So thank you so much to Mark. Here is a crab dance from Mark. Y'all show some love. Let's go.
Clap for that, you stupid bastard. And Corn Pop was a bad dude. And he ran a bunch of bad boys.
Listen, fuckhead. You have fucking crossed the line. Claiming I'm the enemy. You got that, you goddamn son of a bitch?
I don't give a fuck what you think, bitch.
Good morning. Sunday morning.
Cut that bitch off!
Hey, why you texting? Why? You're getting nervous, man. Calm down. It's okay.
Suck my dick and choke on it. I yield my time. Fuck you!
Brilliant. I love it. I love the crab dance. We are so close. We're so close to hitting our goal. So again, I'm just going to plug the show before I leave. Thank you to everyone who's supporting. You can donate on whichever one of these is good for you. PayPal, CashApp, Venmo. Just scan the QR code. Other than that, we also have Rockfin. Definitely sign up there because it helps all of indie media. The link is rokfin.com. And it's free. So that's good. You know, we're live streaming there. You're going to find all the videos there. And if you do subscribe for $10 a month, you get the premium, which a lot of channels offer. So I think that's pretty cool. There you go. Putting it up on the screen now, rokfin.com. And there's the Patreon as well. And you can donate monthly for as little or as much as you'd like. Of course, whatever's good for you, only if it's good for you. And last but not least, the merch, right? So today we talked about Joe Biden's death cult. If you want, you can get the t-shirts that I made with Mona, which were really good. We got more coming, by the way. We got a lot more war criminal merch coming. So you definitely want to keep an eye out, right? We got more of that coming, so that'll be cool. And the link for this, I'm putting it up on screen. The link for this is store.richardmedhurst.com. Whoosh, there you go. Yeah, that's about it, guys. That's about it. And thank you to everyone who donated to the GoFundMe, because I'm going to make sure to get a new computer now and fix all these, plug all these CIA NSA holes, right? Make sure, we don't have any more issues, because it's getting on my tits now. So there you go. So thank you to everyone. Hold on, there we go. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And I'll have all the segments up very shortly. All right, be good, be safe. And again, Substack, go subscribe on the Substack, RichardMedhurst.substack.com. All right, I'm posting articles there. So thank you very much. Adios. Have a good night, good evening, wherever you are. Ma